let's go to the Twins, which might surprise people because we picked them to win the World Series, if you remember our World Series draft, because we forgot about them until the very end. But it's between the White Sox and the Twins. Let's just jump into the Twins based on standings last year. They finished 78-84. They did re-sign Carlos Correa as of this podcast. So let's go Twins. Anyone got hot Twins takes?
Didn't they lead the league in IL days or something last year? Like they
possibly
were hurt,
I will look that up.
they?
I will look that up.
So I think so much of it is that are these guys going to stay on the field? Maybe I'm having a fever dream here, but I feel like I read that somewhere, and it kind of shocked me. I knew they'd been dinged up, but that is a stunning thing. So anyway, like that, there's my hot take on the Minnesota Twins, who we totally did not forget this time because we know baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of the Twins. I can squint and see this team winning 86, 87, 88. I think with the realigned schedule, it's going to be challenging for like teams in either of the Centrals to compete for the wild card. I think that both Centrals had really benefited from having some weaker competition. I think having to play the Blue Jays and the Rays and the Yankees and, all that more often is going to be a bit of a problem. I think it was for them to get Correa back is like a huge, point for the future of the organization. I don't think it necessarily makes them better though than the team that kind of fell apart last year. He was on the team. So it's it's a great to have him. Like you want Carlos Correa, but I don't look at that group last year and say, man, they were a Carlos Correa away from winning the division. They had Carlos Correa and they got a pretty good Carlos Correa season. I think it's more, like they've acquired Michael A. Taylor with the idea that, ever getting 600 plate appearances out of Byron Buxton is a pipe dream. So let's not even try, which is like good. Like, hope for 120 games out of Buxton and you'll be very happy with that. He's an incredible player when he's on the field. I don't understand Joey Gallo. I just don't. I fundamentally don't get what they're trying to do there. The Pablo Lopez deal, I think they got the better end of it for sure. But Lopez is who Lopez is. If you talk to people around the game, talk to evaluators, isn't the way that maybe he's going to be marketed. Like he's a number 3, number 4 type starter, which is good. That's great. I like players like that, but I don't know if he really changes the fortunes of the group all that much. I look at this as a, somewhat above average team that isn't going to have the benefit of, playing as many games in division as they had in previous years.
To Mark's point, we have the data thanks to Baseball Prospectus and their wonderful injured list ledger. The Twins were second in all baseball in days missed. They were first in the American League, but then Baseball Prospectus also lists like value missed in the WARP, like their version of WAR. Twins were the second biggest hurt team in all of baseball. So yeah, that has when you're finishing just a little bit under 500, that does add up. It's not as if the Twins were 62 and 100 and it's like, yeah, so what if they're all healthy? You add 9 wins to this team and that can make a pretty big difference. So I don't see that back half of the lineup really doing them any favors. Like you're saying with Gallo, if he's hitting 6th or 7th, okay, whatever. But I could see one injury and all of a sudden he's up there hitting 5th or he's plugging away really there with ducks on the pond. And that just hasn't worked for a few years. The rotation, I'm into the rotation. I mean, Joe Ryan is a guy, like I'm really high on Joe Ryan. Sonny Gray, still doing good things. Breaking, Carlos Correa still with the Twins as of now. Kenta Maeda, I think it's super underrated wild card as far as he's a good pitcher. And if he's healthy, I know he's on the older side. He's 35 or so. But if he's healthy, that guy's a dude. I really like watching him pitch. So I'm not down on the Twins. I'm just not seeing like if they're a pretty comfortable third for me in the division. And I know people are going to quibble about that because of the White Sox, but I think the Twins are pretty solid third.
I'd also like to point out, Grant, that you did not use the name of the one pitcher who, when the Athletic approached us about doing this podcast, you told me I will never know how to pronounce Tyler Mahle's name.
That is why I didn't bring him up. Tyler M.
Tyler M.
Tyler M.
Tyler M. Yeah, I mean, the rotation's fine. It's a collection of, 3s, 4s, and 5s with, probably more 4s and 5s. Maeda had been quite good, but he's also coming off Tommy John.
Sure.
With a lot of mileage on the arm. And do I buy the if they're healthy, they'll be better? Of course. But just thinking out loud, does it get easier or tougher to stay healthy as you get older?
Man, I ran a softball practice 2 days ago, and I can still barely put on my pants.
If they got a great season out of Correa, and now, as you pointed out, Grant, he might have termites in his ankle. So there's a lot of there's just it's shaky ground, but you can see them being good enough to win the division because they have so many. I mean, Jorge Polanco has been a very good player. Max Kepler has had good seasons. Correa, I still think, is a top 10 player. Buxton, if they could get 140 games out of Byron Buxton, he might win the MVP. He's so talented. He's so good. But it's just the health. He has played over 92 games once in his entire career.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I get they're not a team that's caught in between, but it was almost like when you look at their winter, it was almost like they bought their own regression maybe more than I would have bought it, the positive regression coming into it. I don't feel like they did a ton to get better. Vasquez is a good player. He makes them better. I guess trading Arias for Lopez is probably better for them because Arias isn't much of a defender, but I don't know.
Pablo Lopez. How many times do you suppose in his career that he's thrown over 150 innings? How many times?
I'll just say 0.
One last year. So, I mean, I think he's a perfect microcosm for what we're talking about. If he posts, I actually do think by simply just pitching, he does change their trajectory enough to make them interesting. But whether he actually does that or not, it's difficult because he's just kind of fits in with some of the other guys they already have on their club, right? Where it's well, he's on the field, he's really, really good. Byron Buxton is going to be that, right? Even if he stays healthy, relatively healthy for the rest of his career, it's a tag that he's already earned. Where it's God, if he would just stay on the field, it'd be unbelievable. So yeah, they've got a bunch of that, and I think obviously the Twins with their actions have signaled to us that that's what they think. But I guess Andy Fraser has bought into their own regression. I mean, they fired their head trainer at the end of the year, so clearly they made a move thinking that hey, this is it was enough of an issue and they could pin it on someone, or they're looking for a scapegoat or whatever. I guess there's some of that too, but obviously that's what they think. They think that if we keep these guys on the field, it's a whole different thing. I don't disagree with that. It's just, what is the best predictor of injury, of future injury? It's past injury. Got so much of it on this roster.
Quick point on Buxton before we move on. Past 2 seasons, he's played 153 games. According to Baseball Reference, he's been worth 8.5 wins. I mean, he's
God.
If he's healthy, he's possibly the best player in the sport. I mean, non-Ohtani division, right?
Right.
So anyway, it's
kind of does everything well.